The doorbell rang at 8:17 p.m. I wasn't expecting anyone, not on a Friday night when I'd finally kicked off my shoes, collapsed onto my couch, and let the silence settle in after the longest week of my life. When I opened the door, she was standing there, Jean White, the CEO I'd handed my resignation letter to 3 days ago. Rain soaked her coat. Her hair was pulled back, but loose strands clung to her face. In her hands was a manila envelope held tight like she might drop it if she let go. She looked wrong, not powerful, not controlled, not untouchable, vulnerable. "I accepted you quitting," she said quietly. Then she swallowed. "But I never accepted losing you." Before we continue, if you love real-life stories about unexpected love, quiet strength, and choosing yourself, subscribe now, like this video, and comment where you're watching from. Now let's go back to the story. My name is Robert McLaughlin, and 6 months earlier, my life had already started falling apart long before Jean White ever showed up at my door. It happened on a Tuesday. Those are always the worst. No drama, no warning, just an ordinary day that quietly ruins everything. I came home from work to an apartment that felt off, too clean, too empty. Rebecca's shoes were gone from the entryway. The throw pillows she'd insisted on were missing. Her coffee mug, the chipped one she loved, wasn't in the sink. There was a folded note on the counter. No heart, no "we need to talk," just words. "I can't do this anymore. I met someone else. You're always tired, always working. I need more than this." 4 years. 4 years together, reduced to 12 lines of ink and a cleared-out closet. I sat on the floor that night, my back against the bed frame, staring at the empty space where her dresser used to be. We were supposed to get married. We'd looked at houses, argued over paint colors, picked baby names we pretended were jokes. And just like that, gone. The next morning, I went to work anyway, because that's what I did. Work had always been the one place where things made sense. I worked at White Manufacturing Group. If you knew the industry, you knew the name. Jean White built it from nothing, literally nothing, a converted warehouse, 2 engineers, and an idea no one else believed in. Now, 300 employees, global contracts, billion-dollar valuation. She was known as brilliant, ruthless, untouchable. I'd been there 5 years, started as an analyst, worked my way into operations, eventually became senior operations lead, which meant I worked directly with her. Jean didn't waste time. She didn't sugarcoat. She didn't repeat herself. But she noticed everything. She remembered how I took my coffee. She remembered my mother's surgery date. She noticed when I stopped sleeping. 2 days after Rebecca left, Jean called me into her office. No assistants, no laptop, just her. "I heard about your situation," she said. "I'm sorry." I nodded, jaw tight. She continued, "I'm adjusting your schedule. 3 days remote, deadlines pushed, no pushback." I stared at her. This was the woman who once told a VP, "Deadlines don't care about your excuses." "Take care of yourself," she said. "The company can wait. You can't." That should have been the moment I realized something was different, but I didn't. I just went home and tried to survive. The late-night calls started quietly. At first, they were work-related, a question about a process, a quick check-in. Then, one night, around 10:45, she asked, "Are you eating?" I laughed. "Does coffee count?" "No," she said, "it doesn't." She told me about growing up with a single mother, about counting grocery money, about building success because fear was cheaper than comfort. I told her about my motorcycle, a half-restored 1978 Honda I worked on when my head got too loud. Those calls became something else. No flirting, no lines crossed, just 2 people being honest when the world finally shut up. They were the only moments I didn't feel hollow. Then came the merger. Everything doubled. Meetings, deadlines, responsibility. I worked 14-hour days, sometimes more. I stopped sleeping, stopped eating, started forgetting things. The first mistake was small. The second wasn't. During a video call with senior leadership, my mind blanked. Jean was on that call. I saw it in her eyes before anyone said anything. Concern, not disappointment. That scared me more. That night, I stared at my ceiling and thought about Rebecca's words. "You're always tired, always working." At 2:04 a.m., I opened my laptop, and I wrote my resignation letter. I handed it to Jean in person. She didn't open it. She just looked at me. "Why?" she asked. "Because if I stay," I said, "I'll disappear." Silence. Then, "I respect that." She accepted it without pleading, without persuasion. That restraint hurt more than resistance would have. I walked out wondering if I'd just made the bravest or stupidest decision of my life. 3 days passed. No calls, no emails. The quiet was loud. Then the doorbell. Rain. Jean White. And the words that shattered my sense of reality. "I accepted you quitting, but I never accepted losing you." Jean stood in my doorway like she didn't belong there. Not because she was overdressed. She wasn't. Not because she looked out of place. She didn't. She didn't belong because this space wasn't curated. My apartment didn't perform. It didn't impress. It just was. The silence stretched between us, filled only by rain tapping against the railing outside. "I shouldn't be here," she said finally. Her voice wasn't sharp. It wasn't decisive. It was unsure. I stepped aside anyway. She hesitated for half a second before walking in. I watched her take in the room without comment. The mismatched furniture, the motorcycle parts laid out on newspaper, the stack of overdue mail on the counter. "This isn't what I imagined," she said quietly. "Good," I replied. "Neither is this." She smiled faintly, but her hands were still clenched around the envelope. "You're not my employee anymore," she said, almost like she needed to hear it out loud. "No," I agreed, "I'm not." She nodded once. That was the moment the power shifted. She handed me the envelope. Inside was a proposal. Clean, structured, thought through. A new role. Director of Employee Sustainability and Wellness. Remote, flexible, fully autonomous. Salary higher than what I'd made before. I looked up at her slowly. "You built a job for me?" "For you," she corrected, "and for everyone else who never says they're drowning until it's too late." There it was. Jean didn't confess with poetry. She confessed with architecture. This was how she loved, by building safety where there had been none. I could have emailed this, I know, or sent HR, I know. So why are you here? She exhaled, long and shaky. Because this isn't just about the job. She took off her coat and draped it over the back of a chair, like she might stay or flee. "I'm very good at being respected. I'm terrible at being wanted." I didn't interrupt. "When you quit," she continued, "I told myself it was professional, necessary, clean." Her voice cracked. But then I realized the only person I'd been honest with for 6 months just removed himself from my life. She met my eyes, and I panicked. Jean White didn't panic over markets or board votes or hostile takeovers. She panicked over loss. "I've spent my life making myself indispensable, because if you're indispensable, people don't leave." I swallowed. "You didn't leave me," she said quickly. "You left a system that was killing you." She stepped closer. "But losing your presence? That felt different." I shook my head. "You don't get to rescue me with a job and call it romance." She flinched. "I know," she said. "That's why I waited." I stared at her. "You waited until there was no leverage," I said slowly. "Yes. No salary control, no hierarchy, no pressure. Yes.
Because if I said yes tonight, you wanted it to be real." Her voice dropped. "I wanted you to be free." That hit harder than any confession could have. "I almost didn't come," she admitted. "I sat in my car for 40 minutes telling myself this was inappropriate." I smiled beside myself. 40 minutes? "I circled the block twice," she said. "That's not efficient. It was humiliating." I laughed softly. She smiled back, and for the first time it wasn't the CEO smile. It was shy. "I don't know how to do this," she said. "I know how to negotiate, how to lead, how to dominate a room. But this," she gestured between us, "this terrifies me." I stepped closer. "Good," I said. "It should." We didn't rush. No dramatic pull, no cinematic timing, just two people standing close enough to feel the other breathe. "I don't need saving," I said quietly. "I need choosing." She nodded. "I'm choosing you," she said, "without contracts, without guarantees." I leaned in. The kiss was soft, careful, like a question, not an answer. When we pulled apart, her eyes were wet. "Tomorrow," she said. "Dinner, neutral ground, no work." "Tomorrow," I agreed. She left a few minutes later, still rain-soaked, still shaking slightly, but lighter. 3 weeks later, the board questioned the hire. Nepotism, favoritism. Jean shut it down in one meeting. Not defensively, decisively. "Robert earned this role," she said, "and if you question that, you question me." No one pushed further. The program worked. Burnout dropped. Retention rose. Other companies called. Jean didn't glow about success anymore. She glowed about balance. 6 months later, we rode motorcycles across 3 states. No schedules, no titles, just open road and quiet conversations. One night, under a sky so full of stars it hurt to look at, she said it. "I love you." I didn't hesitate. "I love you too." I quit my job to save myself. I didn't expect my CEO to follow me home. But she didn't come to reclaim an employee. She came to meet a man who finally chose his life over his role. And sometimes, when you choose yourself first, love finds you without power attached. People think the hard part is quitting. It isn't. The hard part is what comes after, when the adrenaline fades, when the identity you've worn for years finally slips off, and you're left asking, "Who am I when no one needs me to perform?" The first few weeks after Jean showed up at my door were quiet, too quiet. No constant emails, no emergency calls, no pressure to be on. I slept 12 hours some nights and still woke up tired. Burnout doesn't disappear when you leave the building. It lingers in your bones. Jean understood that. She didn't push. She didn't overtext. She sent one message each morning. "Did you eat? Did you move your body? Did you breathe today?" No follow-ups, no guilt, just presence. That restraint told me more about her than any grand speech ever could. Rebecca texted me 3 weeks after Jean came over. "I heard you quit Apex. That's surprising. Are you okay?" I stared at the screen for a long time. 6 months earlier, I would have responded immediately, explained myself, defended my choices. Now, I felt nothing. No anger, no longing, no need to prove anything, just clarity. "I'm okay," I replied. "I hope you are too." That was it. I didn't ask about her new life, didn't reopen wounds. Some endings don't need closure. They need distance. Jean was different outside the office. At work, she moved like a force of nature. Outside of it,
She hesitated before speaking, second-guessed herself, apologized for things that weren't mistakes. "I don't know how to be ordinary," she admitted one night over dinner. We were sitting in a quiet restaurant, no press, no executives, just 2 people in shared silence.
You don't have to be ordinary, I said. Just honest. She smiled, but her eyes filled. I've spent so long being admired, she said softly. I forgot what it felt like to be known. That night, she didn't talk about work. She talked about fear, about the loneliness of being the strongest person in the room, about how leadership isolates you, even when people depend on you, especially then. The board tested us again, subtly. Invitations that excluded me, meetings scheduled during our off hours, questions framed as concerns. Jean noticed. She addressed it directly. If you're uncomfortable with my personal life, she told them, say that. Silence. If you're questioning Robert's role, she continued, bring data. More silence. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't threaten. She just refused to shrink. Later, I asked her why she'd risked it. She shrugged. Because love that survives only when hidden isn't love, she said. That sentence rewired something in me. The motorcycle trip was my idea. 2 weeks. No meetings, no Wi-Fi, just road. Jean agreed immediately, then panicked. I don't disappear, she said. I manage. This isn't disappearing, it's trusting the world not to collapse without you. She didn't laugh, but she packed. The first day, she checked her phone constantly. The second day, less. By the fourth day, she left it in the saddlebag. On the seventh night, under a sky so wide it felt like freedom itself, she said, I didn't know life could feel like this. I kissed her forehead. It can, I said, if you let it. We were camped near the edge of a desert pass when she finally said it. I almost didn't come to your door that night. I looked at her. What stopped you? She stared into the fire. Fear. Not failure, not rejection. Fear of wanting something she couldn't control. I've spent my whole life building systems, she said, but love isn't a system. No, I agreed, it's a risk. She reached for my hand. I'm still scared, she admitted. So am I. We stayed like that, quiet, honest, no promises, no timelines, just choice. When we came back, the company felt different, healthier, lighter. The wellness program expanded. Executives took vacations. Employees stopped apologizing for being human. Jean watched it all with something close to wonder. You didn't just save yourself, she told me one night. You changed the culture. I shook my head. No, I said, you listened. That was the difference. One evening, months later, we sat on my balcony. The city glowed below us. She leaned into me and said, I used to think quitting was weakness. I smiled. So did I. Now, she continued, I think it's courage when staying costs you your soul. I wrapped my arm around her. That's the lesson, I said. I quit my job to protect my heart. I didn't expect my CEO to follow me home, but she didn't come to pull me back into a role. She came to meet the man who finally chose himself. And when power was gone, when titles disappeared, when fear stood face to face with truth, what remained wasn't hierarchy, it was love. Not loud, not dramatic, but brave enough to knock on a door in the rain and say, I won't lose you. A year passed, not in headlines, not in dramatic announcements, just in choices made daily. Jean stopped measuring success by expansion alone. I stopped measuring worth by exhaustion. The company kept growing, but differently. People left on time, vacations were respected. Burnout stopped being a badge of honor. And when employees asked why things had changed, Jean didn't give a corporate answer. She said simply, because I learned that losing people costs more than losing profits. One evening, after a long walk through the city, Jean stopped under a streetlight. No cameras, no speeches, just us. I spent my life afraid of wanting, she said, afraid that needing someone would make me weak. She took a breath. But loving you didn't weaken me. It made me honest. She reached into her jacket, Not a ring, just her hand. I don't want to own you. I don't want to save you. I want to walk beside you. I smiled. That's all I ever wanted. Months later, I ran into Rebecca at a bookstore. She looked surprised to see me calm, happy. She asked what I was doing now. I'm living, I said, and I meant it. No bitterness, no need to prove anything. Some people exit your life so the right version of you can enter it. People think power is about control. It isn't. Real power is choosing connection without leverage. I quit my job to protect my heart. I didn't expect my billionaire CEO to follow me home. But she didn't come as a boss. She came as a woman, brave enough to say, I choose you, without power, without safety nets, without guarantees. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from what's killing you, so what's meant for you can finally knock on your door. If this story made you feel something, if you've ever walked away to protect your heart, subscribe, because the hardest choices often lead to the most honest lives, and there are more stories like this. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is open the door and let someone see you without armor.